Hotawan was once home to a community of 2,000 fishermen and their families.
Once a German colony, miners flocked here after diamonds were discovered in 1908.
The Bodie, California, which is probably the most famous and best preserved ghost town in the state of California.
This is an entire island of creepy dolls.
Hey everyone, today we are going to take a tour to some of the most eerie, spooky and quiet places where you won't find people.
Let's just say you were hired by the government to design an underground base. Would there be any reason for you to pick Archuleta Mesa?
Some of them have banned humans while others have restricted access. A few of these places are so creepy that people would rather not go there on their own.
Just amazing how something can get so destroyed just from sitting. Oh, your discretion is advised.
You'd surely be getting goosebumps by the end of this video. So without any further ado, let's dig in. Number 1. Plague Island, Italy. Italy has a secret that you probably didn't know about. Near the coasts of Venice, there is an island that has the darkest of histories. From being a refugee site to a secret military outpost, the horrors were yet to come. During the late 18th century, 2 ships were forced to stop at Poveglia Island, having a hint of a few plague cases. Since then, Poveglia became a quarantine site, and it continued to hold true to its label even after the plague died down. Anybody who showed the slightest of symptoms was thrown on this creepy island and left to live in isolation. The rumors tell a harrowing story. People believe that 50% of the island's soil is made of human ash. Experts think otherwise, but their theory isn't so comforting either. They believe that humans were dumped down in plague pits rather than burned alive, and the exact number is close to 100,000. But the island's horrors didn't stop there.
In the late 1800s, an asylum was built for the area's mentally ill, and in 1922, it turned into a mental hospital.
Later, an asylum was constructed on the island in the early 20th century. The mental hospital had one crazy doctor who would do the weirdest experiments on his patients. He died on the same island, and it is believed that the ghosts of his patients pushed him to his end. After the asylum was shut down, locals claimed that they heard eerie voices and walked out spooked by the island. It may or may not be true, but it is enough to keep people far away from the island. Number 2. Dead Man's Island, United Kingdom. This island is completely out of bounds to the public, and for good reasons. You can guess by the name what the island hosts. There were many humans that were buried on the island, but over the years, their remains started washing up to the shore and were often seen floating around in the estuary.
Most of these bodies were riddled with plague, such as the Black Plague itself.
It became so common that the locals have become unfazed by this knowledge. It is a common instance for them now. It is unclear who these people were, but a lot of theories suggest that they were prisoners. But some think that plague victims might have been buried here too. Around 200 human remains were discovered in the year 2016. People wanted these remains to be reburied, but the idea died down when the consistent erosion kept washing away the remains. It was almost impossible to track down the remains and rebury them. So the island is left to its own state, and people prefer staying away from the lands. Number 3. Runit Island, United States. In the mid-90s, United States did something pretty audacious like most things the country does. It used the island as a testing site for nuclear and biological weapons. The country dropped over 25 bombs in a span of 4 years. The bombs were reported to be 1,000 times stronger than the ones dropped on Hiroshima. The problem was that they had to dispose of the waste now. To dump off the hazardous waste, the authorities came up with a creative solution to design a nuclear coffin. So, they brought in the concrete and built an 18 inches thick layer over the waste.
This concrete is 18 inches thick, and it's sealing off some of the most hazardous material known to mankind. You don't realise how big it is until you walk up here.
People fear that the construction was done in haste, and it is not as reliable as the authorities call it. Some of them even spotted cracks in the dome. The authorities have the world convinced that the dome is good for another 20 years. The island isn't guarded, but anybody would be foolish to go down there. Number 4. Dudley Town, United States. The Dudley Town is a private property, but it is the deadly curse that keeps people on the other side of the fence. The city came into view in 1740, but the town was completely abandoned by the year 1800. The town itself hosted only 26 families, but the way some of the members started catching the curse was crazy. It was like the area was cursed with bad luck. Murder, suicide, madness, and failed business became its gruesome story. Many people who have gone down to visit the area have come back running. A lot of the people have spotted strange shadows walking around the forest nearby.
Watch who's stalking who now. Who's stalking who now? Look at that.
Even Ed and Lorraine Warren, the famous supernatural investigators, termed the town as demonically possessed. That should tell you something. Number 5. Gulliver's Travel Park, Japan. Abandoned theme parks often have a spooky vibe, but imagine one with a 147 feet massive statue sprawled on the ground. Kind of gives you the Chucky vibes, doesn't it? Gulliver's Kingdom theme park is near Mount Fiji in Japan. It was open to the public but had to shut down after 4 years because of low profits. But that's just the outside story. Many people believe that the park's bizarre location was the reason people never came. Turns out Gulliver's Kingdom was a bit too close to a couple of sinister spots. One was the famous forest, where people were known to take their lives. More than 500 people have found their end in this forest. It got so bad that the government had to put up signs near the forest with numbers to helplines. The other location was just as evil, a village where a terrorist organization had built its headquarters. They had launched a terrible attack on Tokyo. This is why people believe the park wasn't that successful. Plus, many think that it was quite weird to pick Gulliver as the theme of the park. Whatever was its reason to shut down, it remains an eerie sight for the public today. Number 6. Elephant's Foot, Ukraine. In a place as dangerous as Chernobyl, there is an object that even the bravest wouldn't want to be around. Experts believe that it is the most toxic piece of waste on Earth. The elephant's foot is at the heart of Chernobyl, tucked away in a corridor just a few feet below the debris of reactor number 4. To jog your memory, that's the reactor that blew up and made the site practically inhabitable today. Because of its bizarre shape and humongous size, the object was deemed the elephant's foot. It was a scorching hot piece of fluid that solidified over the months and became a massive 2.2-ton slab of scary radioactive material. It was formed from the highly toxic corium that has only been formed 5 times naturally in history. When the radioactivity around the elephant's foot was measured, it climbed up to 10,000 Röntgen. Going close to the foot means that you're basically near a ticking time bomb. If you spent 5 minutes in its presence, you would die within a span of 2 days only. Despite the fear and fascination around the elephant's foot, it is nearly impossible to study it. Experts have been tied up with replicating the toxic object through simulations to study it, but their efforts have yet been in vain. Even 4 decades after the disaster, the elephant's foot is off-limits to people and incredibly dangerous in its nature. Number 7. Portal to Hell, Turkey. Researchers had been looking for Pluto's gate for a long time, and they were in for a delightful surprise when they found it in Italy. The gate was like a small cave, that could hold only one person inside. When it was discovered that it was emitting strange fumes, the cave was turned into a holy site. Not to forget that any beast or bird that came near the portal would drop dead. The people believed that it was done by Hades. Since then, people were not allowed to go near the cave, and it was even used sometimes for sacrificing humans. A few people could withstand the toxins and would be hailed beyond belief. What was strange was that some people started believing that it was a portal to hell. Others thought that it would lead somewhere else. It wasn't until years later that the researchers dug up the story and found that it was not a hoax. Birds and animals still found their way to the end when they got near the cave. They studied the cave and found that the Earth's crust was leaking gas. Carbon dioxide might have seeped through the crust, causing all the mysterious deaths and the mystical vapors near the cave. An expert believes that the cave sits on top of the Batadag fault line and might be releasing toxic gases from the Earth's crust. Whatever the reason may be, it has now been closed for public access. Number 8. Willard Asylum, United States. Back in the late 19th century, there wasn't a lot of room for the mentally unfit people in society. They were considered undesirables, chained and treated like animals. They couldn't fit in with the societal norms, so their families sent them to mental institutions. The way these people were hated all their lives was nothing short of a horror scene. Some patients were brought in a chicken crate, while another spent her whole life locked in a cell until she was moved to the asylum. Amidst that, Willard Asylum was an institution like none other, a revolutionary step to help the mentally unfit. The doctors at the asylum saw how interacting with other residents and providing a healthy environment helped the patients. But at the end of the day, it was still an asylum.
It's amazing how something can get so destroyed just from sitting. Oh, your discretion is advised.
When it closed, it left a lot to unravel. The asylum had rooms with electric chairs, rooms with multiple beds, and hallways that screeched the lives of the lonely patients. There was a whole graveyard of patients, and the graves weren't even marked with patients' names, forever forgotten. Inside the facility, there was a room filled with hundreds of suitcases of patients. A photographer made sure to document them online so their memories could live on. The same cannot be said for the building, though. Most of the facility has been shut down and left to rot. Some of it has become useless to live in. Number 9. Erdstall Tunnels, Europe. The Erdstall tunnels, built thousands of years ago, still baffle humans today. These tunnels are nearly 2,000 in number and are spread over a greater part of Europe in Germany, Austria, France, Ireland, and Scotland. There are many caves around the world that have a purpose, no matter how they might look, but that's not the case for Erdstall tunnels. Nobody knows why they were made. The tunnels stretch about 60 to 160 feet with only one point of entry or exit. For years, people thought that led somewhere, but that theory debunked a long time ago. But what the experts did find was interesting. There were tiny holes that would connect tunnels of different elevations. This left the scientists even more perplexed. The tunnels could not be used for humans since they were too narrow to fit a person inside. Plus, there was no breathing space. Even if they were used as escape routes, there was only one side of the tunnel open. There were no remains to deem it as a tomb, and no signs to call it a mining site. It has all been too confusing. There are a lot of theories, but none that could solve the Erdstall tunnels puzzle. One thing is for sure, though, you can't possibly go inside these tunnels. Number 10. Snake Island, Brazil. Near the southern coast of Brazil, there is an island that will send you running in the opposite direction. Popularly known as the Snake Island, you can pretty guess why it is famous.
Or Snake Island is home to the Golden Lancet.
The island is spread out over an area of 106 acres of land. with over 2,000 to 4,000 species of snakes crawling around in the forest. It is believed that the snakes have been trapped there for 11,000 years. Long ago, a family lived on the island that was tasked with the care of the lighthouse. But the whole family was devoured by snakes, and nobody dared step foot on the island since then. Number 11, Krakow in Italy. The ghost town of Italy went through many troubling phases until its inhabitants finally called quits. It all started in the 1960s when landslides took over the town. The damage was so bad that many people had to flee. Then came floods, followed by an earthquake. The place was deemed too risky to live, so the locals packed their bags and forced a farewell. Since then, the town has been pretty much abandoned, giving rise to many legends. There was a church in the town that still had mummy remains of a saint. Besides, it was a tavern that was run by a witch. That attracted all kinds of superstitious theories, but that didn't stop curious travelers from sneaking inside the town. The area remains strictly off limits, but you can go there at your own risk. Number 12, Dulce Base, United States. Imagine a place that is almost invisible, but the stories around it are too good to ignore its existence. What's bizarre is that no humans have ever been spotted there either. Dulce is a small town in New Mexico that does not even have proper roads. But reports are that there is a secret government base there that is thriving. Rumors started rising up when a trooper spotted cow mutations. He claimed that there was a fetus inside of a cow, but it wasn't all human either. It was half frog and half monkey too. Some have even spotted a black silent vehicle zipping through the sky, calling it a UFO. But nothing was as crazy as the claim made by Schneider, who says that he constructed the base.
Let's just say you were hired by the government to design an underground base. Would there be any reason for you to pick Archuleta Mesa?
He insists that he saw 60 humans getting killed in a human-alien war he witnessed live inside the base. He believes the war is still going strong. Number 13, Merinda Castle, Belgium. This picturesque castle looks straight out of a Disney movie. It pretty much was the kind of castle you see in movies, with high ceilings, arched hallways, wooden staircases, finished with ballrooms. It was the perfect place to stay like a royal family. The house was a summer home for a noble family until World War hit, and the place was confiscated by Germans. The house saw many people after losing its original hosts. First, it became the house for soldiers, a summer camp for children, and then a house for dolls. After it was abandoned by the children and the staff, people claimed that they saw dolls in strange places around the house. Some people even heard screams of children in the building. Number 14, Island of the Dolls, Mexico. This island has a chilling story that keeps the people far away. There was a man who used to take care of the island. One day, he found the lifeless body of a girl floating in the canal. The next day, there was a doll at the same place. The man thought it belonged to the girl. He took it out and hung it down from a tree. Legend has it that the girl used to haunt him. In order to please her restless spirit, the man started collecting dolls of all kinds and shapes.
To appease her spirit, Julian began collecting and displaying dolls around the island.
He continued doing it for the next 50 years. Once his nephew came to help him out. He had gone to ease out a hunch. When he came back, he found his uncle's body at the same spot as the girl who had drowned in the canal. Number 15, Town of Body, United States. There is a ghost town in California that used to thrive as a gold mining camp. The city was at the peak of its success, hosting 30 gold mines, 65 saloons, numerous gambling halls, and even opium dens. But with its rise, violence started creeping into the city. People would get into street fights, and killings and robberies were becoming quite common in an effort to flex power.
When walking through the town, you do notice some buildings that are in really good condition with nice windows and blinds in the windows. I believe that is where park personnel stay when they are working at the park.
Soon enough, the city fell and people started leaving the area for a better home. But with the city's downfall came a myth that ran nationwide. The city apparently had a curse that brought bad luck to anyone who stole the artifacts from the city. This might have been done to keep the robbers at bay. But there have been reports of locals begging the people who had taken things to return the artifacts and lift the curse. While it may be a myth, the city remains abandoned as ever, with an eerie spookiness zipping through the atmosphere. Number 16. Kolmanskop, Namibia. A town in Africa used to be a boomtown before World War hit, but for the past 50 years, it has not hosted a single soul in its homes. In the early 20th century, a railway station was being built in the city. One of the workers came across a stone that turned out to be a diamond. News traveled, and people started raiding the area before the jewels disappeared. But people kept finding the diamonds and kept getting crazy rich. Around 2,000 pounds of diamonds was unearthed back then, and it was enough to make the city fancy. But the phase didn't last long. There were bigger diamonds in other areas, and people started losing hope in the city. Eventually, the city was abandoned. Now, there are houses and buildings in the city, but there are huge sand dunes inside, making them completely inhabitable. Number 17. The Floating Forest, Australia. There is a ship in Australia that has been abandoned for a century. It is at Homebush Bay, where there is known to be a graveyard of ships. The story is that the ships that had lived their lives to the fullest would be thrown out here at the bay. These vessels were quite old, dating back to the early 20th century. They were widely used to carry weapons and supplies during the World War. But when the need subdued, the broken ships were brought to the bay and dumped here. The ships were forgotten by the authorities altogether. Nobody even bothered to clear them up, even when the area started redeveloping. The shipwreck point was left untouched, and the ships thrown here were left to catch rust. Since man gave up on the ship, nature decided to board one of them, the SS Airfield. Number 18. Monel Forts, United Kingdom. These forts were originally built to fight the German forces on the sea. But after the World War ended, the forts didn't last long. They were left to rot in 1958 and were completely abandoned by the authorities. A lot of people have tried going inside the forts, but that's just thrill seekers who want to taste a bit of adventure. There has been no effort to restore the forts in an efficient way, and they stand there catching rust with each passing day. Number 19. Dundas Castle, United States. This castle is the home of horror and mysteries, and it is probably the reason why it has been abandoned for years. The owner of the castle could not see the castle built in his life. He passed away before the building could be finished. Plus, there were rumors that the owner's wife was not mentally sane. She was locked away in a room upstairs and had to be shifted to an asylum. But these rumors are not as scary as the actual footage that comes out of the castle. There is a spooky place in the castle with a dungeon door that looks just as creepy as it sounds. But what's even more eerie is that the castle was once used as a site for children's summer camp. The scary stories never stopped coming out of here, though. Locals believe that it is haunted, and the dark hollow corridors only make you believe that theory. There are heart-shaped pools all around the property. The gossip mill suggests that they turn red when there is a full moon. Number 20. The Creepy Dollhouse, Spain. This empty house tells the sad story of a mother who lost her 2 children and started collecting dolls as a coping mechanism. The house hosts around 1,000 dolls inside, located in every nook and corner of all rooms. The woman passed away in the year 2017, but no one is allowed to live here, and it is all because people are scared. They aren't wrong to fear the house. It is in the middle of nowhere. On the outside, it looks like a Disney castle, but the inside tells a pretty spooky story. Number 21. Gui Island China. This amazing village looks straight out of a fantasy novel, but it is far from true. This island actually exists in China. The island used to be a thriving fishing village, but then it got infected by overpopulation. People couldn't carve out a living by staying in this town, so they started to move.
Hotuwan was once home to a community of 2,000 fishermen and their families.
Eventually, people abandoned the village, moving to other cities. When humans left the village, nature took over. Green ivy started sprouting in the village, covering almost every house. It now looks like a green paradise, and the strangest part is no one lives there. Maybe that's what happens when humans stop interfering with nature. That's all, folks. Did you know about these places? Would you like to visit? Let us know in the comments below. If you liked this video, hit the thumbs up icon and show us some love. If you haven't already, subscribe to our channel. We have a lot in store for you. Stay tuned for our next upload. Thanks for watching and goodbye.